Oh, is this the part where we're supposed to like kick things off and like say some shit? Okay. Something like that, right? Well, unfortunately, I'm by myself for the moment, so you're not getting any witty banter from any of me or the other foreign nerds. But you know, we're here. Day one, stream number one, DC United. Welcome one, welcome all. But maybe we should kick this off the right way, I suppose, right? Hold on one second. There it is. Welcome one, welcome all to the very first stream of DC United. I am your host, as you all know, Unfiltered, part of the Four Nerds Network, as you all know. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get those plugs out of the way, if I could even find them here. This is the first time I'm ever doing something like this by myself. We got, where is it? Damn it, Dawson, you don't have anything labeled. This is not the business. Wow, I thought it would be on here, but it's like not, unless I'm not seeing it. Clearly I'm blind because I don't see any of this shit that we're supposed to promote and whatnot, but hot damn. Let's see. Excuse me. Excuse the shit out of me. Right. I don't, where is this stuff? Is it in banners? No, it's not in banners. I have no idea where any of this shit is. What am I doing here? Damn! Seriously, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Like, where is all the? Is this it? No, that's just okay. Check out latest poster and all. Okay, so link in the description, not in my description, but you all know. Entitled artwork. Like, what the fuck, Dawson? You need to label your shit better because I don't know where any of our network plugs are on this at all. Like, at all. I don't see any of these network plugs here. Period, bar none. But hey, well.
Oh my God, I don't care. I don't care.
I tried. Sorry, Dawson. I can't find the plugs. I can't find our page. You got to label this shit better because I just don't see any of it here, buddy. But yeah, welcome to the very first stream of DC United. Again, I am your host, Unfiltered, and today we're just going to be chatting about fucking here and there about everything DC, what we love about DC. I don't know if we're going to talk about what we hate about DC, but it's just going to be like a hodgepodge of why we like DC and like fucking bunch of other shit pertaining to DC, how we all came to DC. I've got a couple people on the way, so it should be a really fun, at least I'm hoping it's going to be a fun time. I hope it'll be entertaining. I hope other people tune in. It looks like we got someone here in the comments section, Mr. Nerd Cosa Nostra. What up? Episode 1, let's go. Yeah, that's right, buddy. Episode 1, and I am fucking terrified because I've never done this shit by myself before, so it's a little nerve-wracking, but I will manage to get through it. I think. I hope. We'll see. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just going to keep playing a bunch of shit until maybe some other people get here. But until then, wow, there's a lot of fucked up clips in this shit. I can tell you that right now. But
there's a lot of good, hard-working people in the world. People who get up every morning and go to work. People who value what it means to work hard, play hard, and take care of your family. And then there's Toby Emmerich. People who try to live off the hard work of others. Good, hard-working people like Zack Snyder, who brought us the masterpieces of Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Something that people like Toby Emmerich don't understand, and fought hard to keep us from seeing. But when you're working hard this summer, just remember...
No, you gotta tickle their balls a little bit.
I had no idea what the first clip was. so I figured I'd play it. But that second one just made me laugh. But yes, I guess I can kick this off by talking about maybe Toby Emmerich, maybe Zack Snyder, maybe a little bit of hodgepodge shit. I don't know. But it's funny because like it feels like in this cinematic era of, or sorry, shared universe cinematic era of storytelling, the DC films really kind of gave Marvel some interesting competition, distinguished competition, as the old man Stan Lee would say. I know for a fact that I've been a DC fan since I was like 3 years old, something like that, 3 or 4 years old. I don't know. I remember vaguely memories of seeing Batman Forever in the movie theater with my parents, or maybe it was at home. I know for sure I saw Batman and Robin in the movie theaters, but yeah, I definitely saw one, if not both of those films in theaters. And I remember watching Batman the Animated Series as a kid too. So they both of those projects probably go hand in hand in terms of like me and where my DC fandom like really begins and stems from. But I also have distinct memories of watching Batman and Batman Returns as well. And it's funny, I actually remember not being too hot on the very first Batman film with Keaton and the Joker. And it's funny because like the only thing that was a huge sticking point for me was the fact that Joker was the one who killed Bruce's parents. I was like, that's not how it happened. He was killed by an innocent mugger or someone named Joe Chill. Like, as I got older and dived into comics and stuff like that, I was like, yeah, no, Joker never killed Batman's parents, only in that movie. Doesn't mean I hate the movie. That's just the one thing that I've always just instinctively known. Like, no, Batman's parents weren't murdered by the Joker. That's nonsense. What are you doing, Tim Burton? But, hey, as you get older, you kind of have to understand, or not have to, but at least I learned to understand that, anyone coming in to play with these characters, and in a sense, if you treat them like toys, you get your time with the toy and put it back in the box, whatever, something to that effect, right? And they have their fun with it. They do their own creative spin on it. And for whatever reason, Tim Burton felt compelled to make the Joker the killer of Batman's parents. And in the confines of that movie, in that universe, I suppose it works. So I look back on it now and I think a little bit differently, but even still to this day, I'm just like, yeah, that still doesn't land for me all that well. But, it's a thing that happened. It happened in 89. I doubt they're probably ever going to return to it, ever. See, Narcosa Notion says, being an 90s kid, Batman 89 and Batman Returns was big for me. So it's funny. I actually used to watch Batman Returns repetitively because I really liked the Penguin. I really liked Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. I was very intrigued by just that entire aspect, that whole, or not aspect, sorry, the atmosphere of that film, and like what that film brought to Batman's world, I guess maybe is the best way to say it. Not really sure, but like, I don't know, again, just the atmosphere of that film in general, I actually dug a lot more than 89. Probably because I'm a Christmas kid and I like Christmas, and that movie is a Christmas movie. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. That movie is absolutely a Christmas movie. Anyone wants to fucking disagree, you are more than welcome to, but I will fucking fight you to the death on that. It is a Christmas movie through and through. 100%. It takes place around Christmas. The very last lines of the fucking movie are said, "Merry Christmas, Alfred." It is a fucking Christmas movie, and it's a Batman movie all rolled into one, and I am there for it. Every year. I watch that movie Christmas time every single year. No doubt. No doubt about it. But seriously, like, Danny DeVito is the Penguin. Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman. Like, they were just spot on in certain respects. Like, Danny DeVito's Penguin wearing the top hat, and the one scene with the monocle where he's looking through all the birth certificates of the firstborn children of Gotham. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's the fucking Penguin. Like, how could you not like that? And then there's just Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, who's just seductive and sleek and very, like, she goes from being the meek fucking secretary to like this powerful, confident presence in that film. And it was just really nice. Really nice movie. At least I think it's a nice movie. And then you kind of jump into Batman Forever and you're like, okay, this is a bit of a departure from Batman Returns because you get a little bit more campier. Joel Schumacher's in the director's chair. You've got, Tommy Lee Jones. You've got fucking, oh, hey, look, we got a guest that came in. I would like to present the one and only Chainsaw Reacts. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Good, man. I just finished eating dinner. Ooh, that was good.
Yeah, I actually just finished off some Carl's Jr. myself.
Oh, sweet.
I haven't had Carl's Jr. in a quick minute, but I was on my way home from work today. I was like, I'm really feeling some Carl's Jr. I was like, fuck it, I want Carl's Jr. Yeah. But yeah, I was just kind of talking a little bit about, kind of going over the not really show notes, but like why this stream is a thing now and why we're doing it. So basically, DC United is a show where DC fans can collectively come together, express their love for all things DC, be it comics, movies, television, what the F ever, But I'm curious, like, what is, since you're here now, what is your origin with the DC universe? How did you become aware of DC?
I think it was Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, okay. We're on the same page.
Yeah, it was around that time, and then the dogs go crazy. Wow, they're like, we don't like that show. We hate that show. Oof. And then Superman the Animated Series came along. My dad, one of the few things he actually did right was get me into DC and Marvel. And I remember watching, like, not fully comprehending Batman the Animated Series, but going, I love this. Like,
yeah,
it's different, because I was like seeing other shows at the time. Like, this is different than what I'm used to. I love it.
You and I are like the same age. So let me just take a guess here. You grew up watching Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, X-Men 97, and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And the actual underrated, in my opinion, Incredible Hulk 90s series.
Yes. And there's also the one season of Iron Man.
I don't think I ever got around to watching that. If I did, I don't remember, but I remember specifically seeing the Hulk series, like random episodes, and going, oh, I love this, because I loved like the big green guy. But yeah, for Batman, it was just like, that was my first, I think, real introduction. But it didn't click in my head. That's Kevin Conroy. This is my Batman forever. But at the time, like, this is really cool. And the fact that you learn years later about how it was made very differently, and the black, like, they actually went black and then colored everything in afterwards instead of going white and then doing everything. I love the fact that it was different. I think it really worked.
The Art Deco style of doing the animation, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was later on is when I finally saw 1989's Batman, then Returns, and all that. But
Did
yeah,
you
it was
those sequentially, like 89 Returns, Forever, Batman and Robin?
I think I saw like one a day, like back to like pretty much like just did 89 finally, and then do the next day 92 Returns, because I think it was like after school each day I would just come home and watch the next one, and obviously last two. but the thing was, is like they were trying something, because at the time there wasn't other stuff being made really like that,
right?
So it was it's a very different time than it is now, where there's so many different studios trying to do franchises and trying to do superhero or like franchise type stuff. Like back then, it wasn't normal for like, oh, we're gonna make a Batman movie. Okay, now we're gonna make a sequel. Like, it just wasn't a thing back then. So I like the fact that they tried.
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah.
you and I being pretty close in age, like the Superman movies were before our time, so obviously we get to those and we're like, what the shit is this, right? Like, because we grew up watching Superman the Animated Series, and we're like, there's a very big difference in like tone, in terms of execution, and like just vastly different interpretations of the character. But I look back at that now, and it's just like, back then when I was younger, the first Superman movie I ever watched in theaters was Superman Returns. And oh my God, that was that was an experience. That was, and I wouldn't say a bad one. I wouldn't necessarily say a great one. It was just kind of like a middle of the road type deal for me, because I remember just not really being into Superman that much, because my love for Superman stems from the Fleischer Studios cartoons and of course the animated series, like you. So when I had gotten around to watching Superman 78, I was like, this is not quite my speed, I suppose, would be the best way to say it.
That's the way to say it. Yeah,
right. And I just kind of remembered looking back on those movies as a young adult in my early 20s, when I really heavily started getting into this stuff, and I was just like, yeah, those movies aren't that great. Sacrilege to say that now, apparently, but
yes, yeah. Well, it all depends on who you're like running into, because like there's like the people that are like, you cannot hate Snyder stuff. There's people say you can't hate the classic Christopher Reeve stuff. People say you can't hate on the Batman era stuff, like Michael Keaton and everything. And it's like, the thing is, we all have our different viewpoints of these characters and what we expect. And I think with me and you, it's like we were blessed with Batman, Superman animated series, and then the Justice League, and then Unlimited. Like, we were blessed with that kind of storytelling where it's long form and we're not having to sit there for only 2 hours and get a story. Like, we're getting so much content from those 4 shows alone, let alone Batman Beyond and other stuff like that. Like, we're blessed with that stuff for a while in that universe.
Don't even get me started on Batman Beyond, man. I could talk about that show all damn day. I love that show.
Yeah, I remember I remember rewatching the pilot a few years ago and going, I completely forgot the opening is when he has that gun and he's like it was that
heart
breaking
attack,
point.
more or less. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was that breaking point of like, I can't do this anymore, because he was still trying to go out there to do it when it way past when he should have stopped. But that's Bruce. Bruce doesn't want to give up. And then how that all really goes into Terry and everything. It's so crazy how they got that full circle when you finally find out why he was picked. And
right.
Yeah, that's so good.
We've even got Nerd Coast and Nostra. I remember saving up my allowance to buy Batman Mask of the Phantasm on VHS. Okay, so I have a story about the first time I watched Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and I'm a little ashamed of myself because when I was younger, I used to watch Batman Forever literally on repeat. Like, I used to watch that movie on repeat. It was without a doubt like my favorite Batman movie growing up. I love Val Kilmer. I love Jim Carrey. I love Tommy Lee. I love Chris O'Donnell. Like, I just love the whole aesthetic of that film. The Batmobile in that film is badass. But one day, I didn't own it at the time. So me, my mom, and my brother would go to the local movie store. And God, I feel horrible about this, but people are going to get a little insight into the kind of kid I was, I suppose. Just okay. So I had seen Batman Forever on the shelf, and I was going to grab it, and then this other kid grabs it. And without even hesitating, I backhanded this kid and said, "No, that's my movie." This is like 6 or 7 years old. Yeah, terrible, terrible, terrible child I was. 100%. I will own that. I was a fucked up child. Like, I was just not like, if I thought something was owed to me or I owned it, I took ownership of it, and I was very protective of that movie in a certain sense. So my mother immediately took me by the ear and slapped me stupid right there in the movie in the movie store, and she was like, "Go pick out another movie right now." And I just looked up and I saw Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and I was like, "All right, fine, I'll pick this one." So I picked that one. Went home and watched it, and I was like, "Wow, that was dark, but I liked it. It's a good movie." That's my origin with Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I assaulted another child to watch it.
Well, let's just say if you didn't backhand that kid, maybe you would not have gotten Mask of the Phantasm. You would have stuck with Forever, or Batman, and I guess Robin. Forever. Yeah, yes. Names mixed up. Jesus, I get yelled at all the time by people like, "You're forgetting stuff." I'm like, I watch too much stuff. Like, I can't remember everything.
Right.
But exactly. Now it's like Mask of the Phantasm is considered one of the greatest Batman movies ever made because of the story and just what they do with it. It's like, it's insane what they pulled off of that movie. And if I remember correctly, it features like one of the best Kevin Conroy like lines or like scenes that he did as Batman.
It's very much like what people would say that the quintessential Batman film. And the irony there is, like, it didn't really do too well at the box office because it came out like Christmas Day of 1993, I think. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I enjoy that movie quite a bit now. Like, looking back on it, I've got the 4K. As a matter of fact, I think I watched that like when I bought it. So there's that too.
Yeah, I really wish like at a time that there was more of like those. I know they do a lot of straight to DVD. I know because at a time I got screeners from Warner Brothers when they released those new movies, Tomorrowverse and all that. But I wish like they would actually put more effort into some of them. I know they did DC League of Super Pets, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm like, they could really, I think, do well with an animated 2D film like Mask of the Phantasm and put that out in theaters and really like make more emphasis on not making it too expensive, but like showcasing the better quality of animation like that was back then and do it now. I think it would do well. I think so.
Agree.
You know,
I agree.
But they don't want to take that risk because they don't know. It's like, that's why they put a lot of stuff to straight to DVD, because you're never going to see them put out, well, even though you don't want to see them put out Warworld in theaters, that would have been a disaster. But
I think anyone would have been happy with that.
I mean, look, if I don't know if it's gonna be great, but like Crescent Infinite Earths Part 1, I mean, if those how many parts they make is good or decent, maybe do a limited theatrical run. Like they're this big culmination type thing. Why not? But I don't know. We don't know how it's going to turn out. So
I don't know. We should get someone else in here to shine some light on this if they feel compelled to. Welcoming Rhea Glimmering Hoppy to the stream. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Hello.
What's up, Phil? Hey, Chainsaw. Good to
Hello.
finally get a chance to chat with you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I remember messaging you. Yes, I've messaged a lot of people. Sorry, I try to keep up with everybody.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I saw that you recently got to go to a Metallica concert with you and your partner.
That's
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Yep, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there. I guess there was like, yeah, there. It was like hit or miss if like both of y'all got to attend or something. Sorry, I was kind of lurking and I was just like, oh, I hope this
Nah.
story ends well.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, Friday we got there too late, and she had to drop me off. She had tickets, but Sunday was good. We got to both go, so it was good. It was good.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
But yeah,
loud.
thanks
My
for.
ears.
I'm glad I could come on and chat with y'all today. This is
I'm
rad.
really thankful both of you were able to come because I was trying to reach out to a ton of people, like, and I got like, oh, I'm busy, oh, I can't make it. And I'm just like, damn it. But thank you both for joining us, and we've also got one other person joining us today, and this will be, I would say, this is probably the Jason Todd to my Batman, welcoming Axel Droga to the stream.
I'm your Jason Todd. Okay,
you have a very
everyone.
Jason Todd-ish attitude, my friend.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm more of a Tim Drake. That's how I see myself. But yes, how's everyone doing today?
Good.
Doing
Good.
great. Good to see you.
Good to see
Congrats
you,
on all
Drake.
your congrats on all your awesome illustration work and your personal projects. I love seeing the progress on them that you've been sharing.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes,
He is
I'm
quite
actually
the artist, isn't he?
I'm something of an artist myself.
It was so funny. So Axel, there was you remember when Brad was trying to do his Aussie accent last night?
Oh, last night, yeah, that was shocking.
I was just like, this is like when I have these like coworkers who, when I used to go to the office, they would tone shift like really noticeably. Like when there were a certain group of like coworkers that they talk very like, office appropriate around, and then like me and my other coworkers over here vibing, and then they're just like, oh hey, what's up y'all, trying to use like meme speak as well as like terminology that I know for a fact they didn't grow up using. So I don't know where on the internet they found out these words exist. So I'm just like, there's like a clear like dichotomy, this like cognitive dissonance there that I was just like, oh god, it just reminded me of that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Anyway, sorry you had to be there, but yeah.
Oh no. Tangents are always welcome on these shows. You guys know that. We can go on tangents all damn day. But since you guys are now here, I'd like to get your guys' opinions on, or well, not really your opinions, but like where were you guys introduced to DC? Like what introduced you to the DC universe? Ray, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, so like many of y'all probably already know, I was kind of like tangentially into like comic book movies and comic book culture and animation and stuff like that. Just, growing up as a kid, never really like got too into Marvel and DC stuff outside of like, surface level like animated series, mostly just through movies and like some live action films too. So growing up, I was actually more into kind of like the Outer Rim characters like Spawn and Blade, the Crow. Yeah, just like really just like, like you could probably imagine like the aesthetic of like characters that I was like into because of that. Also, I was really big into anime and manga, so that was kind of like where my interest sort of like leaned more towards as a kid. And then as I got to go into college and studying more film and animation history, I started getting more into like, okay, what are like the actual like publishers and names behind and studios behind a lot of these characters that I've always sort of known existed, but never really like dove into deep at that point in time. So after a few years of just learning more about like film production and stuff and story writing, getting to know more of like the actual like writers' names of a lot of like the more famous like graphic novels and animated films and stuff, then just jumping into YouTube, yada yada yada, trying to like hurry this up. But yeah, like basically
You're good.
but basically, yeah, like lifelong kind of always just been like a surface level, oh yeah, I remember those characters. Oh yeah, like Superman animated series, like oh the Justice League animated series. Oh yeah, Batman animated series. Oh, Batman Beyond. And but yeah, still kind of having like my own like, interests in like aesthetics as far as like, what I was aligning to more at that time. So then fast forward to now, where now I'm just like, wrist deep in like all this discussion around comic book movies and superhero lore and stuff. So now I'm just sort of like a sponge absorbing it all and trying to, catch up and keep up with everyone. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm still like very much in the learning and discovery phase from all y'all.
It sounds like you and Jordan and I were all kind of introduced through these characters in a very similar way via mostly the animated realm by the sounds of it.
Yep.
Like animated Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League, Batman Beyond. And you, like you mentioned, when you said Spawn, do you mean the live action movie or the animated series?
Both. Yeah.
Both. Okay.
So
Very
yeah,
cool.
I apologize for the live action movie a lot. And I noticed that a lot of other people like they are like, no, I actually really like the movie. I acknowledge the visual effects are not the best, but it was still a great movie. There are a lot of things to really like about it. And I feel so like, redeemed because I always felt ashamed, like, saying that I like that movie so much. But a big part of it is nostalgia, but other part is just like, yeah, I do feel like, let me see, the character portrayals, the actors in the film, they did a great job, with the characters in their roles. So yeah, there was just a lot for me to, still hold on to and appreciate for that.
I think there's a lot in that Spawn movie that a lot of people find they can appreciate. I mean, John Leguizamo's The Clown was really good. Michael Jai White did phenomenal as Al Simmons, and even the suit looked great, even though there are some spotty CGI spots in that film. But it's funny, I actually just rewatched Jason X, and the effects in that movie make Spawn look like a freaking masterpiece in terms of visuals. And it's just,
are we talking about
hilarious.
Spawn, the guy from Mortal Kombat? Are we talking about him? No, I'm just kidding. I'm fucking
What?
What?
I don't.
Spawn was a character in Mortal Kombat.
I know.
Like a DLC
Yeah.
character.
Side
Yeah,
question:
and
Why
in
did
Soul Calibur.
Yes,
you
and Soul
revisit
Calibur.
Jason X? I'm curious. Why did you revisit it?
I had watched, so for Friday the 13th in October, I'd taken the day off because I was initially supposed to do a Pokemon VGC tournament, but I had to back out due to financial constraints. And so I just took it upon myself to rewatch all of the Friday the 13th movies up to part 8. I don't really watch Jason Goes to Hell because that movie doesn't really feel like much of a Jason movie to me, but then I have access to a website a friend of mine let me have access to, and I could literally watch whatever the hell I want on it. So I decided to revisit Jason X, and I was like, is this movie really as bad as I remember it being? Sure enough, it was. It was. And like I mentioned, like the effects in that movie make Spawn look just better by sheer comparison, because they're only a few years apart, which is really funny. But yeah, I really do like the Spawn film, and even the animated series, which is funny because there's a Batman the Animated Series connection there, because Eric Radomski started on Spawn, if I'm not mistaken, and then went to Batman the Animated Series. It's one or the other. He went from one to the other. I don't remember which one came first, chicken, egg, whatever. But yeah, they are done the same way, and I think that's where the inspiration came from to do Batman that way in the animated series form.
Yeah.
All right, Jason Todd, what about you? Where does your introduction from DC come from?
So, 10 years ago, I was always a Marvel person. I was because Iron Man 3 had just come out, Thor, Dark World. We were on the verge of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. We didn't at the time. I didn't know we were gonna get an Avengers 2, but and then I saw the game Lego Batman 2, and I saw trailers of that, and I wasn't huge on DC. I knew of it, but is my mic okay, by the way? Can you guys hear me well?
You're good.
All right.
You're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so then I played that game, and you know what? I'm really invested in this game. I'm I don't know, I just really loved that world in that Lego game. I don't know, it just got a lot of nostalgia. And then I watch not Man of Steel first. And that first I started to get into comics. After that, well, actually no. First it was the animated films. So I decided to watch a few trailers of the animated films. I think the first animated DC film I watched was Crisis on Two Earths, and
oh, that's a good one.
I think that's just where the beginning of that my art style comes from, is just that it was the first animated movie. And then it was Justice League Doom, which I thought was a sequel to that, but apparently it's not. It's different, but same, it's different voice cast, but same designs and stuff. But and then what was next? I started to watch all the other animated films, and then I started to watch Young Justice, because yeah, it's just that. Yeah.
Young Justice is good stuff. Yeah.
Love it.
It was.
Love it.
And back then we only had the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we were teased with Darkseid at the end. It's kind of similar to a movie that came out a few years ago.
Very true.
And then the comics I got into was New 52. It was Justice League, written by Jim Lee. I mean, drawn by Jim Lee. I don't know who it was written by. I don't think he matters, to be honest. But
you can say it. It's fine. We all know. Well,
Jeff Johns. Yes.
Right. Right. The New 52 Justice League written by Jeff. I know what book you're talking about. Yeah. I had it. I recently got rid of it, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. The lights. And so I thought this was, and like, I just really loved the New 52. That's how I got into comics at least for me, like, because I know a lot of people didn't like the New 52, but I did because, yeah. And so how I got into like the movies and stuff. So like, what was the first movie? I think it was. Let me try and think. The first live action movie. I remember there was like a binge night, like because we had this thing called Foxtel in Australia. I don't know if that's still a thing. And there was like a whole movie night for like DC movies. It went from, I think we started with The Dark Knight, and then it went to The Dark Knight Rises, and then to Man of Steel. This was like 2014. So I just remember like watching that all night because I was sick that one night, and I had vague memories of that, and like those were cool movies at the time. They weren't for me because I was like younger and like just didn't have the concentration span, that's just my TED talk.
Interesting, very interesting, very very interesting. You know, it's funny. I actually remember going to the midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises, and I was pumped because at no point in the marketing did they show whether or not Bale's Batman was going to get his back broken. And me being, I had just read all of Nightfall, Knight's Quest, and Night End, and obviously Bane is the antagonist in that film. And then going into it, I was with my best friend at the time and my cousin, and they're like, "So what do you think's going to happen?" I was like, "Oh, he's for sure going to get his back broken." And they're like, "What?" And then I had to explain to them like the whole, in the Nightfall story, Bane comes to Gotham City, breaks every single inmate of Arkham out of Arkham, and has Batman basically run a gauntlet of all the villains that he's ever had to deal with. Some of them are even hyped up on Bane Venom, one of them being the Riddler. And then when everything's all said and done and Batman's like tired, defeated, like exhausted, he goes down to the Batcave, and there's Bane, because Bane figured out who Batman was just by purely watching him as Bruce Wayne on the screen. And he's like, wait a minute, I've seen
the same jaw.
Exactly, the same jawline, right? Yeah. And he goes, that's Batman. I know who Batman is. So Bane finds him in the Batcave, and you get that iconic shot of break you, and he breaks him over his knee. But then in the movie, like, you know, they have their whole fight in the sewer, and then, like, you know, Bane goes, "Oh yes, I was wondering what would break first.
Oh yes,
your spirit, oh your body,
oh your body."
And then he just drops him on his knee, and I just shouted audibly, "Yes!" And like the first 4 rows in front of me, like jumped. Another guy looked up, and I was like, "Yeah, that fucking happened. It was great."
Yeah, it was supposed to happen. It was all destiny.
Yeah, it was destiny.
Poor guy.
It was your destiny.
But I remember watching Man of Steel, and at first I was very trepidatious because I was like, well, I don't know how I feel about another Superman movie. So I was talking to Jordan before you guys showed up about how the very first Superman movie I ever watched in theaters was Superman Returns, and I had a very like lukewarm reaction to that film. Like I remember walking out of it, and I'm just like, yeah, that was a movie I watched. I remember that distinctly. And my cousin, my older cousin at the time, he just shouted like audibly, like as we were walking out, well, Kevin Spacey was great. And I just turned around and I was like, really?
Wrong.
He's overly exaggerating.
I mean, it's super funny because like when I think about like my love for Superman, I think about characters like Lex Luthor or like Brainiac or, you know, basically any other Superman antagonist. I'm just like, you know, he was just kind of doing Hackman, but a little bit more hammy. And I just wasn't vibing with that too much. So when we got around to Man of Steel, I was kind of trepidatious because obviously at the time I was a very, very gatekeepy kind of, it needs to be like the comic book nerd. And I was just, you know, really trepidatious about it because I wasn't too thrilled with the way The Dark Knight Rises ended at the time. Because again, I'm speaking in past tense when I was a very different person. And I'm just like, you know, I don't really know how you do Superman in a realistic world. And my friend elaborated to me, no, it's like, no, you don't understand. It's Superman being presented in a real, like what happens when a Superman falls into our world and what are the ramifications of that? And I thought about it, I was like, that's actually a very interesting concept. And so coming out of the movie, I had the biggest smile on my face because I was like, this is like the Superman I've been waiting to see my entire life, and it's great. And then you get online and you're like, wow, hell, people just like want to take a dump on it because he snapped Zod's neck. But
even though he kills him in Superman 2.
yes, and everyone was fine with it.
There's no such thing as the fuck. Don't police come to that in a different version of that
Arctic
movie?
Police, yes.
The Arctic Police.
Oh,
yeah, I was
man.
thinking that's not canon.
He had to make a decision. I don't know what. I still understand why people get mad at that. Like, was he supposed to let the innocent people die?
Did they want him to smile? Because if he smiled, then that's
yeah. As he's like looking at people getting like obliterated by his heat vision, he's like, "Yeah, I didn't kill him, guys. Love me."
And they make it out like he's happy about it. No, he's devastated.
No, he screams.
He's the last Kryptonian until Supergirl.
This was
he's the last Kryptonian then.
This was also around the time where I was listening heavily to like other podcasts, especially like Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman when it was still Fat Man on Batman. And I think he either said it there or he said it in like an open interview where he was like, well, he should have just put his hand over Zod's eyes. And I'm like, they established in the movie that they can't do that because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I find criticisms like that to be a little tone deaf. I mean, obviously, Kevin Smith has come far and away from that years ago, obviously. But like, yeah, it was just like, it's very interesting how, you know, in wake of the Marvel Cinematic Universe having its success after the first Avengers movie, people went into Man of Steel not kind of expecting something similar, and then they didn't get, you know, the lighthearted, like chipper, cracking a joke. Like they didn't get that comic book movie. They got it. You know, we were blessed with a very serious, very like, this is what happens when aliens would probably come to our planet type of deal. And it's not, you know, jokes aside, Hulk smashing an alien in the face. Like it's not that at all. It's like, no, these aliens are coming to invade and they mean business. It's very real. And I think that's probably what I appreciated about it most, even though we're talking about a character who, for all intents and purposes, is not real by any stretch of the imagination, especially with what he is capable of doing. So it's just very interesting to me how like the reception of one versus the other and how that's gone forward into where we are now in terms of the shared cinematic universe era of superhero movies. It's just very, very intriguing to me how times have changed, I would say. Very much so.
For sure.
Like if you look at the other side of the coin now, like Marvel Studios specifically, they're starting to tread into more, you know, serious, darker kind of storytelling, and obviously we're going to get a little bit of that with Deadpool 3. Echo's rated, you know, TVMA, so it's like about damn time. And then obviously, you know, James Gunn is the head of DC Studios now. I would imagine that the tone of that universe is probably going to be a little bit more lighter than what we have seen of the DC extended universe. Would you all be willing to chime in on that?
Yeah, I actually was going to ask you a follow-up to what you were just talking about. So I kind of get this, if I watch a lot of different podcasts, obviously. And so I know like a lot of like the different talking points or, you know, feelings folks have brought up over the years. One thing I am sort of like, now I guess like this crossroads of like lack of clarity that I'm hoping to get some clarity around right now. So there is this perception of the tone that Marvel movies have kind of like have like ingrained on the film going audience for like the past decade or so, that it has become like expected for a lot of comic book movies or like superhero movies to be similar in tone to that, more or less, from what Marvel has established in the theater. Whereas with like other comic book movie studios, like let's say DC or even other independent comic book IPs being adapted into movies, there's this perception that, oh, the audience is not ready, or there's a perception of, oh, they're not ready for, you know, something different. And I kind of feel like there is, for me personally, I think that it's a little frustrating because I feel like there are assumptions being made around, like, you're assuming that the audience is not smart enough to know what they like, on one hand, where they're not ready for anything that's not MCU related, and you're also not giving the benefit of the doubt to the current, range of MCU movies as being valid outside of them just being like, like what everyone is accustomed to already. So you're just saying everyone's just used to eating slop, and then they're not smart enough to know that they're eating slop. And I'm like, no, I don't think that that's like, I don't think either road is like, fair.
The right road, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at, is like, it's frustrating when the conversation boils down to folks like being so reductive in like how they view the movie going audience's taste to be either just accustomed to what Marvel's been putting out, or like, not educated or, willing to be educated enough on anything different. And I'm like, no, like one actually is really, there are redeeming factors in like, what the MCU's been putting out. And I do think audiences have a right to not like things that are different, or if it doesn't match with them, it doesn't mean that they didn't like it just because it was different. If that makes sense.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to like kind of map out exactly what I'm frustrated on with like those two dichotomy of like arguments that I've seen that I'm like, I don't think either one is, like in good faith,
I think to your point, like if you look at the MCU and then you look at something like Joker, they're both perfect examples of how stuff from that said source material can be presented in a way that people can, in fact, latch onto for very drastically different reasons. I mean, obviously, Joker was like a pop culture phenomena in that it was a very inspiring story that shed light on mental health, but it also took some of its inspiration from some corners of DC in certain respects. But then you look at how the MCU has literally just like changed the game in certain respects. I mean, the Avengers was, again, in its own way, a pop culture phenomenon, because you had 4 different heroes from 4 different movies all come together to face this one threat. And everyone was like, oh, wait, it's all in the same universe, right? And people went, okay, we want DC to do this. And DC was like, okay, we want to do this in our own way. And then it was almost rejected because it wasn't exactly like how Marvel presented it. And I find that unfortunate, because now we're at the stage of like, okay, everything's a multiverse. What are we going to see that's different now? And yet we've seen a little bit more of the same from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And even, I would even say even more so, not more so, but like even so with some of the DC stuff in terms of like each sequel, especially in like case of Shazam, like it's just the same of what came
It
before.
felt like if more as well. No, I didn't see Shazam 2, but like just looking at the trailer, it just felt like a DLC.
It's more of the same is I
Yeah.
think that specifically the issue with the Shazam sequel was it was more of the same of the first film, and that really didn't sit well with a lot of people. Aquaman's Lost Kingdom, jury's still out on that film. Wonder Woman 1984 was lambasted for not being at all like the first film, weirdly enough. And then you look at like Birds of Prey and people just went, it's just a knockoff of the Suicide Squad with a female-led cast. Not that I think that's a problem, but I'm just saying like that is criticisms I've seen presented online, because I'm one of the fans of Birds of Prey. I love that movie to death. But, it's just very interesting to see all the like varied reactions to how these films are, gestated and, consumed by general audiences, and how we're in where we're at now with superhero movies. And it's just very interesting to me to see where we go from here, because obviously Marvel is making some very heavy changes going forward. James Gunn is flatly doing a reboot, but he's cherry picking characters that are going to come over from like the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, what have you. And it's just going to be very interesting to see like what changes are going to be made on both sides to try and keep general audiences invested. Oh, excuse me.
I mean, that's well, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Chainsaw.
Well, basically, I was just gonna. The point, like DC has been failing at the box office, besides Joker and the Batman, since Aquaman. Like every movie has just not performed well, and I think you are right to an extent about it's the tone. People want Marvel, like the Marvel tone for DC. Now it's weird because Joker makes $1 billion. It's a very dark film. Then you have the Batman, but the Batman isn't connected to the DCU. I think audience in general are just kind of done with the DCEU in terms of whether it's tone, whether it's how they've told their story. I think Just League had a huge part of why everything just started to fall apart, because of how they handled that whole situation. And it's really unfortunate, because I don't think
funny you mentioned that too, because like we're having this conversation on the anniversary of that movie.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, the theatrical cut. Yeah.
The theatrical cut, yes.
Yeah. I don't think Black Adam was a horrible movie. It was mediocre. It was, but they, instead of doing what they wanted to do, it's like, Black Adam fighting Superman. They decided to go the route of introducing a whole bunch of new characters that, I've never been seen before.
Not a lot of people really knew who, like, I mean, you could probably make the debate that if anyone knew anyone outside of Black Adam from that movie, it was probably Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
And
That's
you said Hawkman too. Yeah.
And Hawkman, yeah, absolutely.
And the way they go about it in the story is that, Amanda Waller's known Hawkman and these characters for a long time, but yet they've never been shown until now. And then you see, like you said, Shazam 2, where it's basically the same as the first film, pretty much. There isn't really anything new they're doing in the movie. And then
they added original characters, which I think really hurt the film. Like, you have so many decades of comics, and you make original characters. That was just not smart.
Which is unfortunate because you had actresses like Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu. Thank you. Like, really great actors. They turned in really solid performances, but it's just like, these are characters that we literally do not know because there is no source material to identify them with. They're just literally made for movie villains. And it's like, why?
There's so many things. Why? I mean, literally, what is the character's name? The caterpillar? I forget.
Mr.
Mind.
Yeah, they literally had Mr. Mind in the after credit sequence for Shazam.
They do that again. Wait, they do that again? Seriously?
Yeah, that was.
Well, yeah, but the point I was making was they had him in the after credit scene for Shazam 1 and didn't use him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was right there. Use him. And so they just don't. I just don't understand. Like, we're saving for third one. We're not getting the third one. Like, you literally play your cards. You don't hold them back.
Yeah,
that's a perfect phrase frame.
Yeah, like, because like that's what Sony's been. Sony is literally we could give you a cool Madam Web movie. I know some people are like on board, and we're all kind of mixed on it, but they could have done something. Yeah, but to me, like, they could have done something more in line of like her looking through the multiverse and something's happening, or the Spider-Verse. But yet I feel like they're holding their cards back, and that's what Black Adam did. We're going to hold our cards back. Even though it was Warner Brothers saying no Superman, they didn't allow them to go, okay, let's make a movie that's actually going to make money.
I think there's like a conversation to be had there about Black Adam and Shazam specifically, because I know also a lot of people really wanted like that Black Adam Shazam fight period. And
I think
it's just
that should have been Shazam too. If Black Adam comes out first, have Shazam in the Black Adam movie to set that up in Shazam 2. Because I don't know if it was originally set like that or if they moved Shazam, because Shazam was always pushed way far out when it was announced. But
it was meant to come out like the same week as Avatar 2, I remember.
Yeah. December of 22.
They could have planned it out to where, hey, we're going to have Black Adam first. We're going to have Shazam in there. We're going to set that up. And then Shazam 2 is going to be him fighting The Rock.
And, you know, there's a funny thing is, sorry to cut you off, but like the funny thing is, like, in Black Adam, you know, the kid's room, there's a Shazam action figure. And I'm like,
yes.
Do you not notice that he's wearing a similar costume? Okay.
No, because it's just, it's a little Easter egg. So now it's like, when you mentioned the whole James Gunn thing, I think it's going to be to where, first of all, it needs to be a full reboot. I don't like this whole nonsense of cherry picking or they're playing similar versions. No, come on.
I mean, narratively, it makes sense, right? Because obviously, you know, some characters in the multiverse, when it's, you know, this universe, that universe, they can stay the same. Obviously, in terms of like Amanda Waller, I love Viola Davis. I think she's great as Amanda Waller, and I think carrying her over, I mean, a clean slate would have been nice, but if you're going to carry over a side supporting character, that's one you can carry over and get away with. It's just going to be really jarring because if she's in Superman Legacy and she was just in Black Adam, it's going to be like, this isn't.
Yeah, so I would say
adding up all that well, but hey, no one's really paying that much attention.
Yeah. So the characters they're bringing over, they need to hold them and save them and not have them immediately interacting. So I'd rather her just wait till her show that's coming. Sure. And then at some point she can interact with Superman, but not right now. It'll save the time. But I just think James Gunn is probably going to go, okay, so what's working for Marvel? Okay, what did work for DC? Because he has said several times what worked for DC EU, not everything, but what did work. And I think it's going to be a combination. It's probably going to be where, depending on the project, that's going to be what your tone is. Like James Mangold doing Swamp Thing, that's not going to be joke. It's going to be probably rated R. And
probably going to be dark.
Probably the authorities can be probably rated R.
And it's got to stand out apart from the TV show that was canceled.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, if it has some similarities, I'm fine because that was I thought Swamp Thing was great. I think the authorities can be rated R. Superman Legacy, obviously PG-13, Brave and the Bold, PG-13, but I think he's going to allow, because since he's a director too, I feel like he's going to allow the directors and writers to do what is best for the characters and let them do what they want to do, as long as it's not like breaking the
I hope
continuity.
so.
So
I
here's a
feel like-
question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think Paradise Lost, since it's taking some inspiration from Game of Thrones, do you feel
Mhm.
like that might be TVMA?
I would
I-
assume so. I feel like Wonder Woman is going to be brutal in this universe because that's what Zack Snyder wanted to do with his, kind of original version of like that image or whatever, where she's holding heads or
Yes.
whatever when they want to use. I feel like we're going to see a Wonder Woman that maybe at one point was brutal and then goes on the lighter side once she is in humanity. But I feel like that Paradise Lost is going to be. I mean, I don't know how else you couldn't do it but that, because if you're dealing with political aspects and potentially backstabbing and murder and stuff like that, like Game of Thrones and House of Dragon, you
Mhm.
gotta push it. You gotta
You
push
gotta
the
go down that
envelope.
route. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And like you know, like and like since it's like because since Gunn posted that image of Wonder Woman like from the New 52, I've seen a lot of Wonder Woman fans like who are fans of the comics. Like a lot of Wonder Woman fans aren't really a fan of the New 52. Which like I'm a New 52. Like I like the Brian Azzarello stuff. Like
That's a good run of
and
Wonder Woman.
yeah, it's a great run. And
Yeah.
like they just like and some Wonder Woman fans I don't know, they just didn't like that comic or just didn't land well with them, so they're a bit like hesitant about it because yeah.
The
And
irony with New 52 is like it worked for characters like Batman, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. And if you look at the Aquaman film and if you look at Wonder Woman film, they're very much inspired by John's Aquaman and Azzarello's Wonder Woman from New 52, because New 52 streamlined Wonder Woman's origin into not necessarily being the clay, like that was the cover up. She is in fact a daughter of Zeus. So I wonder like how much of that will carry over into Paradise Lost, if any of it at all, if we're going to see something a little bit more vintage, I guess would be the best way to say it in terms of how Wonder Woman's portrayed. What do you think, Rhea?
I feel like it would have been a great opportunity in The Flash to have Amanda Waller just pop up, maybe like it just for a split second, if not just like a minute, just to establish like her existence in another multiverse, just to kind of like clarify what y'all were saying about how jarring it's going to be to see her in like future DCU specific content. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about like new DCU content and potential tone, of that, I agree with y'all. I would love to see like a more darker, serious, like practical effects driven, drama epic on for that series. Another thing that I kind of get exhausted by though with a lot of discussions, well, at least for me personally, because it's I'm faced with like the reality as far as I'm seeing it, as far as like limited funds being available to produce this content versus the high graphic fidelity that people are expecting out of like these works. And I'm just like, can we prioritize the story being first and foremost what we're looking for, and then we can say like, okay, what talent do we want behind it, and then what we expect as far as like the visuals. And like it's challenging, I know, because like these heroes are like are godlike figures, so of course you want the like the images to match your perception of who these characters are. But it's for me, I guess, because I'm so outside looking in from a lot of like this information, I'm thinking, well, yeah, we got to kind of have like temper our expectations a little bit and like be stoked about potentially more practical effects being used, but also keep in mind like the last few movies that we did see with the budget sizes that we've seen for the graphics that we got. Let's try to reel in our expectations a little bit and try to focus on like, okay, how well is the story going to be executed? So that's kind of like what I'm getting at, is like, oh, is the visual presentation going to like take away from any of the merit of like any sort of like creative storytelling or ingenuity that we're expecting out of like these new projects? That's what I'm hoping doesn't happen. I think like within this immediate group of folks that talk about this on the daily, like we can be bipartisan enough to give concessions around like, okay, yeah, the story was great, the visuals meh, like, but yeah, I'm just like eager to see like what the wider realm of like general audiences are going to respond to the most.
Hopefully it's good. That's the goal, is that the response is hopefully good, because I feel like general audiences are willing to accept pretty much anything. Like they'll give something a shot I think it's all marketing. I think as long as the marketing is great, I feel like it's gonna, things are gonna hopefully do well. I mean, the Monarch show, the new Godzilla show, just came out, and people are really talking about that, and I feel like it's because it had a great marketing campaign. And so, with something like that for Paradise Lost and everything, and the budget, I mean, yeah, they got to be careful with the budget like that. I think that was probably one of the bigger problems with the DCU is that they spent so much money on these movies, and they just didn't bring in the money to justify it. And I feel like that really hurt them too. So it's unfortunate. It really
I'm glad
is.
that you brought up. Oh, sorry, Axel. Go ahead.
Like with the budget and all that stuff, like because I now non-DC related, but I recently watched that Mortal Kombat movie and
Yep.
it was god awful. Like, except for the beginning, that was like the best part.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like and after that, you could tell that the whole movie they're like most scenes they were on a set. Oh hey Phil, they were like on a set and stuff. Like you could, and the lighting was terrible. Like we're just talking about like the budgets and stuff. Like for example, I'm using like the Mortal Kombat movie. Like I saw recently.
Oh, here we go.
Oh no, I'm just using that as an example.
I'm just giving you shit, man. I know.
Yeah, I know.
Because I actually like that movie a lot. Well, yeah. I like it in 95 for different reasons. But I think, to your guys' point, especially Ray's point about like the budgetary aspects of these projects, I think especially in terms of Superman Legacy, people clamoring for a $200 million budget, I'm like, you guys better dial it back. Seriously, like you do not need a $200, $225, $250 million budget to make a great Superman movie. And again, that's not a knock at Man of Steel because that movie cost $225 million to make. But it's also important to remember that was pre-COVID times. That was pre where we are at now. So it was justified in certain respects because it had a very big scale in terms of like the story they were telling. Whereas I don't think now you don't really need that with the technology that they have available to them, especially with the amount of characters that are going to be in this movie, because you have Superman, Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and now the engineer from the Authority. And I'm just like,
and the rumor is that Brainiac's the villain.
I did see that today. That it's rumored that Brainiac is in fact the big
been the rumor forever.
Yeah, well now it's getting more traction, and I feel like there's going to be more characters announced. And I think what they're probably doing is, hopefully, doing better on their contracts to where, depending on how the movies perform, and then the more you appear, you get paid more per project. Because you don't want this film to come out $250 million production because you have to pay all these actors so much money, and it doesn't even make $500 million. First of all, like that wouldn't even help break even because that's on top of that's the marketing. Right. But yeah, this movie needs to be under 150 million, 125 million maybe. I feel like 150 maybe I think is your top. You don't need to spend because that 50 million for 200 production that could go to your marketing instead of your production. I would like to think, since James Gunn has boastfully said, I've always come under budget with my movies for Guardians, that he knows, since he also is co-running the studio, to try to go under budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that makes sense because, like, again, we don't really need a $200+ million budget to get these movies in. I mean, hell, the first Wonder Woman movie had a budget of $147 million.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot of similar things with Wonder Woman that you could do with Superman. And I think even the first Aquaman movie didn't even have, I don't think that budget even exceeded 200 million. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that, but I think it was somewhere in that same ballpark. Like you really don't need any of that, like, period. To tell a good story, I don't think you need to justify $250 million for a budget on these sizes, like especially with these characters.
Between 160 to 200, it's
okay,
either or. But it's could be more, obviously.
Probably. So, we're probably all of the mind that Aquaman 2 probably cost upwards of $200+ million.
They're saying 205, but I don't know. I feel like that's not including all the reshoots they've done. So
exactly, yeah. Who honestly knows? Oh, who's in the chat? Who's in the chat? We got AC Universe. What's up, buddy? We got Eric Z, DC United. What were the budgets for Superman Returns and Man of Steel? Okay, so the budget with Superman Returns was actually godfathered in from Superman Lives. That's why that movie wasn't as monetarily successful as it was. I want to say for sure, I think the final budget for Man of Steel was $225 million. I think. I could be wrong about that, but I'm like sure that's what it is. Let me just double check here real quick. Yeah, 225 million. Yeah, that's according to Wiki and Google.
Well,
So,
Wikipedia.
yeah. Well, I
You
did
never know.
Google search, but
Oh.
it is what it is. But yeah, I think that if above all, I think to Rhea's point, like the story should be the number one priority, and I'm pretty sure James Gunn has said that like we're not going to film anything unless we nail down the script first. Which
Yeah.
honestly, good.
I'd rather have a nailed script versus them going in and going, because once you start doing
Yeah, well.
reshoots, that's the budget keep going up. So
Yep.
I'm
You
also
get a
not a
million budget.
I'm not a huge fan of off the cuff, like, banter, like, oh yeah, there's so much chemistry going on in front of the camera, just film them talking, like, like the ad-libbing, I guess. Like, I'm
Mhm.
sure, like, there's been times where it's worked and I didn't realize, oh, that wasn't even in the script. But for me, yeah, like to y'all's point, I would like more of like a clear idea of, yeah, these, you know the script and the story being nailed down before jumping into the production, and not so much like these on the fly decisions kind of dictating the final product. Because I think, like, yeah, like we've gotten that already, and it hasn't really been it's been like, a consistent sort of like viewing experience, at least like for me. But anyway, my point was to Chainsaw's example about pointing out Godzilla, and how effective they are with making very low budget films look, top quality, like Godzilla minus one. Like, I'm gonna go see that. Or
$15
and
million, I think, is the budget for that film.
15.
$15 million.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's just like a matter of like, yeah, like creative cinematography, lighting, staging, like these are all things that, cost little to no money to actually know how to do, and just sort of like execute it, like, with the, like, and just knowing how to execute it, But another example that came to mind while y'all were talking was The Creator. And I do really like that movie. I do think that it was, cut short from it being like, an amazing movie, but I bring it up because they were able to achieve a lot, as far as like what they were able to communicate on the screen with all of the visual effects, and especially with so many, like, characters being AI generated, or like
Mhm.
having uh pieces of their bodies, like, being like,
Looking
mechanized and
mechatronic.
stuff. Like,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I think that they did a great job with, lighting and staging and building atmosphere, in order for audiences to not so much focus on, oh yeah, the visual effects are a little grainy right here, or yeah, they're looking a little, 2010s here. At least, like, that was my, sometimes when they would linger too long, on like, wide establishing shots, I would kind of get that feel. But more or less, they were able to kind of keep the lighting and staging to a point where I didn't focus on that too much. So
Mhm.
those are examples, like Godzilla and The Creator, where like I feel like there was enough ingenuity and, like, you know um thoughtfulness to be creative with the limited amount of budget to still pull out, a an awesome final product. So yeah, that's just
No,
to say, to your point, yeah, you don't need $200 million to do that.
I actually just thought of another example too. Brightburn. That movie has like a
Mm.
$6 million budget. It's basically evil Superman.
And then James Gunn was,
Producer. He produced
yeah,
that
like
film.
he was a part of that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All
I
over the marketing, his name was all over that.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
That-
of course, I mean,
they had to
everyone
sell
knew him
it
from
somehow.
Guardians.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. But that's a fair point, because that's something that he's like, he knows, okay, it can be done. Like, and obviously they did a very good job of the camera work in that, to kind of like, that he's around, but you don't always see him all the time. But like, they did a really good job. Obviously, Superman, you kind of have to show him, but
Yeah.
like, it's a very different approach. And I feel like with him being co-running the studio with Peter Simon, it's like they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure out what the right thing is. And I think each thing's gonna have a different budget for different purposes. I feel like the TV shows are probably gonna be
A little less.
little less, and then you're probably gonna Swamp Thing, probably not, maybe not even hit 100 million budget, because you really don't need that for Swamp Thing, I wouldn't think.
I don't think so. No, I agree.
Yeah, it all depends on what the story is, and like, because I feel like they're gonna build a practical suit for Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
Or at least,
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Honestly, the only one I could see getting a budget of at least 200 million at the very end of the day, truthfully, no. That one you could probably get away with doing Mandalorian, like 150 million tops. I'm going to go ahead and say right now, the only one I think that is possibly going to get a budget that has at least 200 million would be Batman Brave and the Bold. And that's purely because of all the technical and technology that you would require to build the Batcave, to showcase his gadgets, the amount of people that are going to be in it, because it's on good authority that, like, you've got Batman and Damian Wayne in it, and we can probably guarantee that some of the Bat family is going to be present too.
Oh yeah. I mean, and you also got to think too, they have to make those suits and they have to go through different prototypes and everything, and then they have to actually make multiple of the same suit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For like
so
stunts and
so I was thinking the same thing, like he's gonna say Brave and the Bold, he said Brave and the Bold. Yeah, and it all depends on how many villains are also in it too, because you got to think, if we're getting Damien, we're gonna have Talia,
and
if we're gonna have Talia, you're gonna have Raish,
and I feel like we're gonna get Man Bats as well.
Honestly,
probably.
I'm kind of that same mind, because if you look at the Grant Morrison Batman and Sons story, those are the main antagonists of that story: Raish, Talia, and Man-Bat, especially Man-Bat.
Is Raish Al Ghul in the Batman and Son comic?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I might have to reread that, but I'm pretty sure
Talia, he's in the animated. He's in the animated film
for a few minutes.
I wouldn't be surprised if it opens up
briefly
with Damien training with Raish.
Yes.
And then Talia is saying, I have something to tell you. Like, she finally decides, I'm going to go tell Bruce what's going on.
I guess in that case, we can kind of move on to this question. That is, what future projects are you most anticipating? And this can even range from the stuff that is even outside Gunn's purview. Like, you can Batman Part 2, Joker Part 2, Constantine. I'm very curious what projects you guys are anticipating.
Brave and the Bold, obviously. I'm very curious about the DCU as a whole, because of what projects are going to be announced and the rumors of what other stuff they're going to be doing. I honestly thought we were going to be getting a Green Arrow and Black Canary project, so I'm surprised on that. Obviously, the Batman Part 2. I think me and you had a discussion about, or no, it might have been someone else. But there was a discussion I had about how, what if Clayface is the sequel, and the rumor is now, of course, that he is.
Is in fact in it. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. So, like, obviously, the Batman Part 2, the Penguin show. I'm very curious about how that's going to turn out. Pretty much everything. Like, I'm curious. The Joker sequel, I don't need it. Because I've only seen Joker once. I don't need to see it again. I don't need to see a musical Joker. I'm good.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'll probably still watch it, but it's something I'm like, like, I think you perfectly did what you're supposed to do with the Joker movie. I don't know why a sequel is necessary, but then again, no sequel and no movie is really necessary. It's all being made for our entertainment, so it is what it is. But yeah,
I think even Todd Phillips said something to the effect of, "I won't do another one unless I come up with an idea for it." And
yeah,
evidently, he either someone shoved a whole bunch of his money in his face and said, "Come up with an idea," or he legitimately went, maybe I could do a sequel, and he started writing one. I honestly, I'm not sure.
Same thing with Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin never does sequels, and now he's doing one.
Right.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I do have to head out.
No worries, man. Thank you again for chiming in.
Yeah, my wife wants to watch some TV. So, but it was cool hanging out, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. Welcome on anytime. Go ahead and plug your stuff. You got anything coming out?
No, just Chainsaw Reacts. I'm starting to put out more shorts, as I talked to another reactor who's like, yeah, we put out shorts. We earned like 100,000 subs in a year from just shorts. I'm like, all right, I'm doing shorts now. I'm gonna start pushing more shorts. Of course, Council of Creators on my channel every Wednesday, and of course, Phil, you're always welcome. You're always welcome to come on, and both of you as well. Everybody's invited. It's gotta try to juggle 50 plus people, content wise. I want so many people on, but so there's a limit. But thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you anytime. You're welcome here anytime too.
Yeah,
bye, everybody. It was great chatting with you guys. Bye.
Hey, yeah.
All right, guys. What about you, Ray? What projects are you looking forward to the most coming out of the DC pipeline?
That sounds so confronting.
I know, I'm like kind of pressured.
Just, kind of going in the circle, you know what I mean?
I guess off the top of my head, I just really hope we see Jaime Reyes again. I love Blue Beetle. I tend to gravitate more towards characters that I resonate with emotionally. Like, I actually like I can like tangibly, visualize their existence in my realm. So I tend to attach myself to them a little bit more. So yeah, future Blue Beetle content, I would love to, have some, something, seeing him somewhere. Yeah, that's all I can think of right now that hasn't already been shared.
I think it'd be nice to see him pop up in the Booster Gold TV show that Gunn's planning. I think that would be
Oh, I didn't know that was a TV show.
Yeah, so if I'm remembering the slate correctly, Superman Legacy. Well, first it goes Creature Commandos, Waller, Superman Legacy, then the Authority, then Paradise Lost, Lanterns, Brave and the Bold, Supergirl, and then Swamp Thing. That I believe is and Booster Gold, obviously. But yeah, I think that is the way that first half weaves together. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping to see maybe some kind of payoff from the end of Blue Beetle, because I did like that movie of the DC movies this year so far. That one's probably my favorite. Again, jury's out on Aquaman. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I would like to see more of Jolo as Blue Beetle. I think he did a really great job. Oh, excuse me. I think he did a really great job in that role. I think and even that movie is like a testament to keeping a low budget, but using it effectively. Like that movie only had like $104 million budget, and it looks cleaner than like 90% of the comic book films we've seen in the last 3 to 5 years. So I'm right there with you. I'm excited. I would hope to see Blue Beetle pop up somewhere, and if anywhere in the near future, I would certainly hope it'd be Booster Gold. What about you, Axel? I know you're excited for James Gunn's slate.
Well, outside of like Gunn and stuff, like I guess I could say Brave and the Bold, like because that's. We're gonna get I know we're gonna get like a different Batman stuff like again, and I'm not a huge fan. I wasn't a huge fan of the Batman. I know you guys were, and like that's good, but like I just wasn't a fan of it. I wanted to love it, but just wasn't for me. So like I'll have like a different Batman, but like I don't know. I don't know, kind of concerned. Like I don't know. Like the movies, like we'll have to see and stuff like for that, but like. I'm just kind of concerned with like I don't know how it's all gonna be like structured and stuff because like he said that video games are gonna be connected. They kind of get that Suicide Squad game out. Like
it's funny because like there's this push now to make the video games that are basically like transactional and like live play, and I'm like that doesn't really sit well with me personally. And
didn't honestly, work for Avengers or Gotham Knights,
right? And I'm just like. I kind of hope he goes, no, I want to make a standalone game that kind of ties into one of these projects and it's purely standalone. You don't need to be online to play it and there's no microtransactions. I'm kind of hoping he makes that as a stake, like a flag, if you will. Like, no, we're not making a video game like that. We want it to be this way. And I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that whole element of the DC corner gets integrated into his universe. I'm very, very curious to see how that plans out. But
and RJ brings up the Wonder Woman game
that's right. Yeah, from Monolith Studios. You're right. What's up, RJ? I saw you pop in, so it's good to see you, buddy. But yes, the Wonder Woman won't be live service. That's good.
The other things I want to see is like I don't want this whole thing to just all be connected to one universe. Like I want Young Justice season 5. Like where's that at? And yeah, we are getting those animated movies at the moment, but like, with Crisis on Infinite Earths, like, and that universe isn't really that great, to be honest. Like, they kind of fumbled the bag like a few times. Like, but
I think the only one I really wasn't a big fan of, the two that stand out the most to me are probably Legion of Superheroes and Justice League Warworld. The third act of Warworld completely derails that whole movie, and then Legion of Superheroes was just kind of eh.
There's a pattern in those movies. There's always a secret. There's always like a twist villain in those movies. First it was Aquaman, and then it was Hal Jordan, and now it's
okay. In terms of like Justice Society World War II, I thought that twist actually worked because it was they were like, oh no, this is an alternate universe. This isn't the universe that Superman Man of Tomorrow takes place in. I was like, okay, I can kind of get behind this. And I think with like Green Lantern, they kind of subverted expectations a little bit by having Hal Jordan be the villain at the end of the day. That was also a subversive choice. I liked Green Lantern Be Where My Power more than most. I'll happily admit that. But like to your point, with like with that whole idea of, and even they did it again, to your point, like they did it again in Legion of Superheroes with Mon-El. I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this because I like Mon-El, and they just totally villainized him in this movie, and I'm like, all right, whatever. But we'll see how Crisis on Infinite Earth shakes out. I think they're trying to do that in 3 parts. I would imagine that they're trying to wrap up that universe with that trilogy of movies. That way, James Gunn can be like, okay, now we're doing animated stuff set in our
They
universe.
just started that universe not too long ago. Now they're just ending it. I'm like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that
That is kind of funny. Oh my god. But like, yeah, I do want to get like more like individual stuff, like Young Justice season 5. Like, I don't like. Is that Caped Crusader thing still coming out?
I'd imagine so, because I mean they just dropped a trailer for Batman, Merry Little Batman, and that's going to Amazon, just like Brave and the I almost said Brave and the Bold, Caped Crusader, because that's where that's heading to. So I'm hoping to see something of that in I would imagine the next few months, because they've been sitting on that for a while.
We haven't heard
anything, nothing, like nothing at all. Like the last time any big news came out about it was, I think, Bruce Timm said something about it in an interview, but before that, it was announced that it wasn't going to be on Max and it was going over to Amazon. I was like, well, that's a bit of a bummer. It is what it is. Although I'm kind of with you too. I really wish that Warner Animation would like a season 5 of Young Justice, because they just gave Harley Quinn a season 5, and I'm like,
oh god, did you watch the recent season?
I need to.
It's.
I heard it's weak. Compared to the.
Have you ever seen Paradise PD?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, don't watch it because it's insanely unfunny.
Okay.
But, yeah, like like I just what was I gonna say before we brought up Harley Quinn? Shit. Oh yeah, we're getting that. Oh yeah, Superman. My Adventures of Superman. That was good. That surprised me a lot. Like,
yeah, I caught a few episodes of that. I was genuinely surprised by how heartwarming it was, and how like they didn't need to utilize the whole Truth, Justice, American Way nonsense, but they still made it feel like a very hopeful, bright Superman. But I do also think that like the anime influence of the animation style really did that series wonders. So I really do need to like sit down and watch it all in one go, because I think only the episodes are only like 30-40 minutes long, something like that.
I think so, 22 minutes. The only thing I wasn't huge on that show was just, I don't know, the villains. Like they all made them like tech based stuff. Kind of reminded me of like the Insomniac Spider-Man games, where they're all tech based and stuff. Like yeah, I like the Insomniac Spider-Man games, but like I don't know, just kind of felt a bit, I don't know, empty.
Or artificial.
Yes, something like that. But like I want to see like more shows, like I don't know, like just like people are clamoring for a solo Wonder Woman series, like, animated series, because we've never gotten that. Like she's, and somehow we're getting a fucking Kite Man show for some reason, and
I really wish they would have kept the original title instead of Hell Yeah, Kite Man. I would have much preferred it be called Noonans.
Wait, this is a thing?
Yes, they're making a Kite Man spin-off TV show from Harley Quinn, and it's called Hell Yeah, Kite Man Hell Yeah. And it was initially called Noonans, like because it was supposed to be a play on Cheers.
Oh god.
That's such a deep cut reference, though. I can see why they might have been like, eh.
Yeah, I get it, but like the dork in me is like, no, you should have kept it as Noonans. That would have been so much better. But again, personal taste, all that jazz.
Did y'all already cover there was a holiday Batman special coming out, right? That the trailer.
Merry Little Batman. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool looking. It's like, totally different. So I was just like, okay, yeah, like, let's see it. Let's go.
Like, I think it's got charm. Like I like Luke Wilson voicing Batman. The animation style is a little Gravity Falls and like Flapjack, but I can give it a pass.
And you know what I used to miss about like DC anime? You guys you guys remember like those DC animated shows called DC Nation, where you get like, like there was one with what was it? Like Lois Lane interviewing Batman. Like you had that really like that 60s looking spy Wonder Woman show. Like you had the Doom Patrol stuff. I don't know. I could go on all day.
Or like the Green Arrow Supermax one.
Yeah, that was funny.
That one's good. I really did
Yeah.
like that one a lot too. And there's even one with like Sergeant Rock as well.
And
Like that was one of
Creature
the last ones they did.
Commandos.
Yeah. Yeah, like
And
even
so like
before.
they had like and I think like this what else did they get? They got like on like Claymation to do one of them, and
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
So simple.
I don't know. Let's see.
And,
RJ
like,
chimes
should
in
bring-
with
Oh yeah.
I'm personally most excited about Superman Legacy, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and Lanterns. Those three projects are what I'm most intrigued by and hyped for. I think of those three, I probably lean a little bit more towards Lanterns and Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I think for Superman Legacy, that one for me personally is just on a creative level, because like I look at James Gunn's filmography and then I look at Superman Legacy and I'm like, there's just something not adding up for me here that I need to just like see it in motion before I make a hard like judgment on it. But as far as the other two, like I think of the TV shows, Lanterns and Waller probably has my immediate attention more than likely. And Supergirl, you know, they just got a writer on it too, so that's exciting. But yeah, I think as far as future projects that I'm personally excited for, I mean, obviously Batman Brave and the Bold, because I'm a Batman fan, but Batman Part 2, Penguin, Waller, definitely. And then I would probably also say John Constantine 2, if that ever gets off the ground, because I'd really like to see Keanu Reeves reprise that role. 100%. But we'll see if that actually happens or not. I kind of hope it does, but you know, anything can happen. Anything can happen. That's for damn sure.
Yes.
An
actor can come in and then a week later they're out.
Actor? The actor?
The actor? Ronald Reagan. The actor.
Well, since we are talking about characters, I guess we can pivot to this. Who is your favorite DC character, Axel?
You
did mention Tim Drake earlier.
Yes. Oh shit. Where's it? I got this is the only one I have. The new 50.
Oh, that's the Brett Booth Red Robin. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got the wings and shit. I'm like,
Yeah, that suit wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
He could have definitely have used a mask or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the wings were a bit too much.
Yeah, I agree.
Or the belt. I don't know. That just looked. I don't know. It just felt a bit too much.
I'm a little bit more inclined of like when it comes to Tim Drake, like Red Robin. I like the initial pre-New 52 look where it's like the straight black cowl, the red suit, the
I love
crossover.
That one.
I love that suit so much. I just love that run. Honestly, that run of Tim Drake is just fantastic. Rhea, do you have a favorite DC character outside of Blue Beetle
and Tim Drake?
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, I feel put on the spot now. Can you circle back to me, please? Give me a
Sure
moment.
Sure thing. I guess we'll talk more about Tim Drake here.
I recently did you read his recent run
the new Robin run where it's just him and it's like it's purely his book?
It's him.
No, I have not.
And he like lives on like a boat or something. He's living with his boyfriend Bernard. And
I have not read this, but I know of it.
Yeah, it's I didn't like some of the issues. Weren't that good. Like there was only like 2 or so issues where I really loved the art because it was just like like Tim goes on a date with Bernard and like Firefly attacks and like that's where he was gonna meet Bernard's parents and like he had to like duck out and like and that art was just I don't know really good, but like the rest of it
on the vodka stream, he seemed really chill. Looking forward to him in Creature Commandos. If I'm not mistaken, I think Frank Grillo is playing Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos.
Wait, really?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Frank Grillo is playing.
No, he was on the vodka stream.
Oh yeah, Frank Grillo.
When was that?
A while ago.
Oh, a while ago.
Either earlier this year or sometime last year, if I'm not mistaken.
That's weird. I don't seem to remember. The fuck? Okay, let me look this up. Actually, I'll look it afterwards. But
would be obvious if I said Batman and Superman. I mean, I'm wearing a Batman Superman t-shirt. Don't feel bad, Eric. And RJ confirms, yes, so I was right. He is in fact playing Rick Flag Sr. And I can see it. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, you can absolutely see that character like stepping from animation. You look at it and it's like, oh yeah, it's Frank Grillo, 100%. Most definitely. I could see that transition happening from, animation to live action. I think the bigger question in that aspect is like, where does Rick Flag Sr. pop up? If I had to honestly guess, probably the Waller TV show. But that's just me. I don't know.
Is the Creature Commander set in the past? What is that? Because they're usually World War II or something.
I'm honestly not sure. I know that as far as like continuity and timeline, I think Gunn said that it's going to be akin to Star Wars in that we're going to see stories take place during certain periods. And obviously, I think the Paradise Lost show is evocative of that, considering it takes place before Wonder Woman was born. So there's that aspect to it. I'm guessing that Superman Legacy and Batman Brave and the Bold are probably going to be set in a more modern time space. Wouldn't at all shock me to see Swamp Thing be a bit of a period piece. Like I could see it happening in like the 70s or 80s when the character was first created. And he, if they integrate him into modern day, they could kind of write him as like, oh, well, I've been around here for, 30, 40 plus years. I could see that happening. And obviously with Booster Gold, since Booster Gold's a time traveler, you can kind of jump back and forth between certain time periods. Lanterns, I feel like, could also take place in a modern setting, maybe even like earlier or later in the timeline. I'm not really sure. And obviously I think Waller's going to be another modern time frame.
Yes.
Are you just
like
having fun showing off your Star Wars figures?
Yeah, no, I got the Obi-Wan recently.
Well, you're doing like a Star Wars DC mashup, are you not?
Yeah, I am. It's Infinitude Warfare. Yeah, it's gonna be that pretty much. And yeah. But for what were we talking? For the lanterns thing, they've mostly been using that one image from Green Lantern Earth 1 or something. Is that it?
I think it might be from Earth 1.
Yeah, because I've never read that comic. I don't know. I don't know. That comic never really interests me. The whole Earth 1 stuff, really got my attention. Batman Earth 1 was alright. Earth 2 was fine. I didn't read Earth 3. No. Volume 3, I meant.
Definitely not World War II, though. I think to that point, RJ, I'd have to guess that since Weasel's a part of it, you could theoretically say like it takes place after the Suicide Squad, because certain events in the timeline transpire in another multiverse, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think the best way I could kind of articulate that is how Greg Weisman kind of put it, in that
adjacent.
It's adjacent, right? Like with Catwoman Hunted, it's not necessarily set in the Young Justice universe,
but you have Cheshire in that movie,
right? And events of that film take place alongside parallel in the Young Justice universe. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Because you have Batwoman in that movie, and even though she briefly appears in Young Justice
season 3, I think,
season 3 and a
4.
little bit, she doesn't speak though, but
no,
and the most obvious one, you have the Green Lantern crossover, which that was the best surprise ever. You know what I miss about movies? You didn't have scoopers. Ruining shit.
Yeah.
And that's what you didn't have with freaking recently Spider-Man 2. You had of course a little bit of leaks, but I had no idea that freaking shit. Doctor Strange was gonna spoilers, have an Easter egg, or just in general.
To that point, I wasn't expecting an aspect of Doctor Strange to factor into the plot of Spider-Man 2. I guess
me either.
The best way to say that, honestly, because in the first game, all you got was just the house, the Sanctum Sanctorum. And then when you get to the second game, there's actually an artifact that comes from the Sanctum that comes into play there. So it's very interesting. And
when you take a photo of the Sanctum Sanctorum in the first game, he says, "Oh, I always have a feeling there's something strange happening in that place." And I'm just like,
that's right. And even Chris brings up a good point here. The Marvel leaks are pretty bad too. Dude, I had 5 or 6 different people message me the mid-credit sequence to the Marvel. So yes, it is getting
even before that, with the leaks of that, or the images of that mid-credit scene, I even heard oh my god, he's gonna come back. I'm like, where is this coming from? Oh right, you're being told this by insiders. I'm like, that's meant to be a surprise. Why? They're just trying to make a name for themselves. Fuck Scoop.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the whole Scoop culture, because now there's a regurgitating plot line for Superman Legacy making the rounds, and I'm just like, I don't know if this is respectable or okay. And I'm just like, this just needs to stop, because that's
where he's in the Middle East or something
like that. I don't know. I don't really want to dive too deep into it, but I just really, really wish that people would kindly shut the F up, because the fun thing about it for me growing up was going to see these movies and being like, okay, what could happen, what kind of surprises could happen. Because I remember watching the first Iron Man movie, and then at the end of it, you get Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury, and it's like, oh, that's a really deep pull because that Nick Fury is from the Ultimate Universe, and they're pulling it for a movie. It's like, oh, that's a really neat surprise. And now it feels like stuff like that is it's
The
it's
worst,
the,
like
it's the new
when it
clout
started,
game.
like when it's, I think when it started first happening from my point of view was No Way Home. That's when you heard a lot of rumors and stuff.
I'm not trying to toot my own horn here when I say this, but I've been privy to this stuff since like 2014, 2015, right around the time of like Fan Four Stick and Age of Ultron and Ant-Man and certain other films too, like even leading into Batman versus Superman. Like Batman versus Superman was practically spoiled up until the film released, and I think that's just a very unfortunate and disrespectful thing to do to these filmmakers, because they're trying to preserve the the surprises of this stuff, and like to see people with like clout, if you will, in this industry just go blab these secrets just for the sake of, oh, I said it first. It's just absolute nonsense in my humble opinion. I'm not a fan of it at all, and I do believe in controlled leaks. I do believe that there are certain things that studios put out there to test the waters. For example, I don't at all think that John Campea like had those Spider-Man images photoshopped. I think someone gave them to him, but
yeah, because nothing happened afterwards.
Right, exactly. And he's still out there doing his thing, and you've even got like, I mean, hell, Grace Randolph blatantly spoiled the ending, the mid-credit sequence to Venom Let There Be Carnage with, Venom licking the TV screen saying, oh, that guy looks tasty. And it's just like, that's so rude to not only like the studio, but like that's rude to Circus, that's rude to Tom Hardy, that's rude to the people who spent time and money to preserve this surprise for hardcore fans. And you're just out there going, see, I got it right first. It's like, fuck you. Like, just come on, like have some fucking class. And I think a lot of these scoopers really lack class.
They need scoopers need to be extinct. I'm just saying. We have humans and now we have scoopers.
I think they should just kindly stop talking. I think that would be my response to them continuously just throwing this shit out there. I just find it very disrespectful personally. But
oh yeah, Ray, I didn't know we were gonna ask you who was your favorite character. Besides Bluebeard question.
Yeah, I remember when I was still sort of like kind of still surface level hazy on like, who these heroes are. I remember really liking Zatanna, like when I was taking art classes. We were studying I remember we were studying Alex Ross work, and we were like trying to establish some sort of like skills around like, okay, yeah, let's try and like, grid out like some of his artwork and then try and like, recreate it through like grid by like recreating one square at a time, like from gridding out one of his examples. And mine was his painting of Zatanna in like the little box.
Yes.
And I was just, oh man, I would love to have that as like an actual like, framed print one day. But anyway, yeah, I was just like, something gravitated me towards, like her character, and I started to learn more about her, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's a magical girl. Like, yeah, of course, like, I'm gonna like fall in love with her. And then Hawk Girl, obviously, like, thank you again, Axel, for creating that commission for me. I loved it. Yeah, I tend to just kind of gravitate towards these like well, I guess Hawk Girl's not like a fully standalone like entity. Like I would imagine like I don't know too much about Zatanna as far as like if she's like if her existence is connected necessarily to like another existing, DC figure, or if she was just sort of like she just manifested and then found her way into the the DC universe, but or not. But like, yeah, I tend to like when like these characters are entities in and of themselves, or they get to a point where like, they are formidable enough to be that. Like I was thinking of like Big Barda, the Furies, who else was I thinking of? Like Vixen,
Nightwing, perhaps.
Sorry, I'm like leaning more towards like the femme spectrum. If that wasn't obvious enough, but yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a femme Nightwing out there. I'm potentially maybe a variant, but yeah. Yeah, that's just
I can't remember
my vibe.
if there is or not. I don't recall if there's a a female
Could
version
be
of Nightwing.
something Grey Daughter, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to like do a deep dive because I know I have access to the DC Universe Infinite app from another friend of mine who's in the chat. But yeah, I'd have to really do a deep dive. I want to say there might be, but I'm not 100% sure. And I know that Stephanie Brown for a short period of time was Robin, and that was a very interesting twist on that. And that was after Carrie Kelly too. So maybe one day we could get a female Nightwing. That'd be pretty cool. You know what? Chris actually just brought one up. Thriller, that is an Elseworld story I'm privy to that I need to check out at some point. And I think to Rhea's point about Zatanna, I remember seeing her for the first time in Batman the Animated Series, thinking, wow, this character is like magical and cool and like different, as opposed to like, you know, what that show typically brings to the table. And it's just like, yeah, and I'm kind of with Eric here too about, you know, Zatanna is the one that needs to make the big jump from live action to big screen. I agree completely, and I'm kind of bummed that it feels like that Emerald Fennell's Zatanna script and film is probably not moving forward in wake of Gunn taking over DC. But hey, you know, could happen in like maybe part 2 of the Gods and Monsters slate that's happening. I mean, anything's possible at this point. But I think someone mentioned earlier in the chat, this is all like precedent on whether or not like Warner Brothers potentially sells off some other stuff in 2024 to other buyers.
No, I'm just kidding.
Doubt it. The big rumor swirling is like Universal. I honestly don't know the logistics of that and how that would even work. I think at this point it's just kind of, you know, with the information presented to us as it is, it's just kind of like, okay, just one thing at a time. If that sale does happen, it happens. If not, you know, we just kind of move forward accordingly. That to me is I try not to think too hard about it because that's just a whole bunch of corporate jargon that I really don't have time to invest in. I'd rather actually spend more time in learning about stocks and investing in that, because that seems more monetary profitable for me, as opposed to like trying to figure out the ins and outs of like, will this studio sell this IP to make a quick buck to get out of debt? I don't know. I doubt it. I don't care. Because at this point, these are characters. The whole point of these characters is like they're meant to entertain us. They've been entertaining people for the last 80 years. It should kind of stay that way. Who has a hold of them should be the bottom rung of where that conversation should end, in my humble opinion. But yeah, I mean, favorite characters like outside of like Batman and Superman, Rhea mentions Zatanna, Hawkgirl. I always like the Hawkgirl Hawkman relationship and how that's been kind of reincarnated and redone various different times over the years. I always found that aspect of those characters very interesting. I've always been a pretty big Jon Stewart fan. I was pretty disappointed to know that Warner Brothers had shot disappointed that Zach shot a scene with my favorite Green Lantern, and then the studio went, no, you can't use it. That disappoints me, because I would have loved to have seen Jon Stewart make the live action jump, because he's, again, my favorite Green Lantern. But I am excited to see him pop up in the Lanterns TV show. If there's a grab there for me, that's definitely it. I've always been more of a Jon Stewart fan than I have been a Hal Jordan fan. As far as like Flash characters, I could probably say I don't know if I prefer Wally to Barry or Barry to Wally. It's never really been like, you know, a big point for me. I guess I could take either or and be fine with it, like, because they both essentially accomplished the same deal. One was just the mentor to the other. But yeah, I actually, honestly, one of my favorite characters is without question Aquaman. Like, I've always really loved that character. I kind of used to like defend him heavily because he used to get clowned on a lot growing up, and it's like, no, Aquaman's a badass. He's the king of the seven seas and he can talk to fish. That's pretty cool. But I digress.
Yes.
And I am excited for Aquaman Lost Kingdom, even if it is possibly, potentially, probably Jason Momoa's last outing as the character, which it is what it is. I'm fine with it. I've kind of put to peace that this is the last film in that universe, and it's like, okay, if this is the swan song, it's, you know, it definitely feels a little bit more fitting than The Flash for me personally. But, you know, I'm excited for that movie. I think it looks, you know, very in line with the first one. I like James Wan as a director. I don't think he's ever made a bad movie. I'm very intrigued by the whole buddy cop aspect with, you know, between Orm and Aquaman being the main protagonist of the story, and Black Manta coming back with a full-on vengeance. I'm very excited to see how that kind of factors into the plot. I mean, actually, you mentioned that it feels like a DLC movie, and I don't necessarily.
No, like I kind of like, you know, when I look at the poster, I don't know, like just, well, I think I meant that more for Shazam 2, but like, because I rewatched the Aquaman trailer like this morning. I'm like, yeah, I was wrong. Yeah.
The first movie's visually stunning. Like I think
is.
that is probably one of the brightest spots in the DC catalog, because that film really just kind of captures the essence and the world that Aquaman is from. And I did like that plot of him like coming to terms with the fact that he is of both human and Atlantean heritage, and he kind of has to accept the fact that if he does not become king, then there's just full blown war that is inevitable, and if he doesn't do it, that's just going to happen, and he has to stop it. I don't know. I also think the casting of Jason Momoa was just very endearing and very personal for a lot of different reasons, and I actually really dug that, because it really does like just put to rest this idea that Aquaman's a joke, and he's not. He's a bad motherfucker, and I love Aquaman to death. So I'm really excited for part 2, The Lost Kingdom. I'm very curious to see what this film is about, and I'm really hoping that it is successful, because obviously DC has had a real slew of box office bombs this past year, and I don't know, it would be nice to have one of them be moderately, if not outright, successful, personally.
I mean, they got to start marketing it properly.
No, the strikes are over too, so you can bet your donuts to dollars that Jason Momoa and everyone else in that cast is probably going to be out there talking about it as much as they can to hopefully get people excited for it. Yeah.
Because like once the strike was over, so many actors like were posting about like their projects, and that was just so good. It was like, okay, it was like they were taking in a huge breath.
Yeah,
and
I do also think, consequently, and on the other side of the coin, that them taking off a year from doing live action films is probably going to be for the best.
Yeah,
and having like Aquaman kind of cap things off for this universe, take a year off and kind of ease everyone in with like Creature Commandos and probably hopefully Waller. I wonder if the strikes affected that production so much so that they might have to push Waller into 2025, but I just don't know. Like they could film it starting tomorrow and have it done filming by January, February, and still somehow manage to get it out by the end of the year if it's not too effects heavy, and I don't think it will. It might be something along the lines of like a Peacemaker and have like, probably a bit of a smaller budget and a personal story. But again, that's all just, hearsay, me guessing. So we'll see what happens.
We shall see indeed.
Indubitably. The final bit I have here, it's just real quick. What's your guys' favorite piece of DC media? And that could be anything from animation, comic, live action film, radio, podcast, does not matter. I'm very curious. You guys can Rochambeau whoever wants to go first.
Rock, paper, let's think. Ray, do you want to start or?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. I don't know, I think animated films just have like a great, like, I don't know, they have like a special place for me because like that's like how originally I got into them. And like, I don't know, just recently the anime films aren't really doing it for me. I don't know. I guess it's just like the boring art style that they're doing because, I don't know, just not for me. But like, I don't know, they're just always going to be special to like fans and and like hopefully, I don't know, to be honest, what else there. Oh yeah, there's the video games like the Arkham games, like those are phenomenal, and
Arkham games are good. I'm just kind of sad that the same studio put out something like Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League.
It looks like Sunset Overdrive.
It looks like a DC skin of Fortnite for me personally. Like I watched the first episode they did of like here's our game, here's how we're presenting it. It's like the episodic podcast they're doing like every other week or so. And I just thought to myself, like, a lot of this feels really forced in terms of like plot, in terms of like gameplay. I admire that they carried over certain elements from the Arkham franchise and put it into a action shooter. Like I get it, but I don't know. I just
timeline doesn't make sense because
not really. No,
Deadshot. Like,
yep.
The King Shark is meant to be dead from the animated film. If that's even canon, which it should be, and like just dismissing that is just kind of
or it's a different King Shark entirely. No, it's got to be Nanaue. So yeah, that's really strange too. And even like having Captain Boomerang not use boomerangs at all is kind of an odd choice to me personally.
Yeah, like I know he's got something in the comics where he's like fast and stuff, but like still, I don't know. And
I also feel
all
like the roster's a bit small too. Like,
too
because
small.
when I think of the Suicide Squad, I'm thinking like 5, 6, maybe 7 people. And this one we've only just got like the main 4 names that often get attached to it. I'm like, well, that's kind of bare bones. I would have liked to have seen like a Killer Frost or like maybe a Black Spider or even like maybe even a KG Beast. That would have been interesting too.
They all died in that animated film.
Yeah, I
but
know.
yeah,
I know.
Who else could they have gone? I don't know. They could have gone more Bronze Tiger, maybe.
Yeah, that'd been fun. Yeah.
Peacemaker, no.
No, you know what? That would have made sense given his recent popularity. I actually, had they put Peacemaker in it, I'd be like, okay.
Well, he's going to be in Mortal Kombat instead.
Yeah, don't remind me. I know.
Omni-Man's in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, not cool. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he going to be voiced by J.K. Simmons in Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, he is.
So that's so strange because John Cena is voicing Peacemaker, J.K. Simmons is voicing Omni-Man, but Anthony Starr couldn't voice Homelander?
I think it was like scheduling issues, and he did voice him in like those animated shorts,
right?
But like, I don't think maybe it's because I don't know if he's a voice actor and stuff. I think he may have just wanted to give it to someone else, maybe like just out of respect for voice actors, like because they had Megan Fox in that game, and like she doesn't sound good.
Wait, Megan Fox is in the Suicide Squad Kills Justice?
No, like in the new
Mortal Kombat. You're right. Yep.
Yeah,
I had to think about that first.
And also Jean-Claude Van Damme. Guys,
he's a skin for Johnny Cage, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Johnny Cage wins.
Yes. What else is there? The Mortal Kombat movie sucks, by the way. Oh yeah, back to DC. Suicide Squad. Also, that game's gonna be the last time we ever hear Kevin Conroy. So,
I did see a rumor that he might be playing a character in Cape Crusader. I did see a rumor that he might actually be voicing Thomas Wayne in that. So it might not actually be his last voice credit. It'll probably be his last voice credit as Batman, but like his last overall voice credit very well could be Cape Crusader. But I don't know. That's just.
Do we know who's voicing Batman in Cape Crusader?
I think it might be on there. I'm not 100% sure on that. Let me double check. Let's see. Let's see. Cape Crusader. Huh. Oh, it has Kevin Conroy listed as Batman for one episode, but I don't think that's true. I don't know. I think they said they might get someone else to voice Batman, but I honestly don't know. I guess we'll find out when they decide to showcase more of that series. So
I wish they'd bring back Beware the Batman. That was a good show. I liked it.
That was a severely underrated Batman TV show.
It's so underrated.
It's a very severely underrated Batman TV show. Ironically, well, not ironically enough, but also kind of a bit of a side tangent is unfortunately we lost Matthew Perry a couple weeks ago, and I just found out he was a huge Batman fan. I was like, oh, well, that just hurts even more now.
Oh, damn it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if I had to pick a favorite piece of DC media, that's actually kind of a tough question because I love a lot of it, like a lot of it. Like I've got like 2 bookshelves worth of graphic novels and like 4 boxes full of comics. I own pretty much every animated movie from the new DCAU going into the Tomorrowverse currently. And I am obviously a huge fan of the Snyder trilogy. It's really tough. I think if I had to pick one, ultimately, I'm probably going to get branded a Snyder bro for this one. But yeah, I'd probably have to say like the Zack Snyder trilogy, like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and the Snyder cut of Justice League. I think like that trilogy is like a nice little sandbox of the DC world that I could, step into, have a great time with, and then step back out. I think I'm probably going to go with that one.
Yeah, those are good movies. Like I often wonder, like sometimes now this is a really hot take, but like I kind of wish those movies happen because like we'll never get movies like those again. And, oh god, I mean I love those movies so much, but like we're never gonna get movies like those again.
Yeah, I think the era of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, Zack Snyder's Watchmen, and his DC trilogy, the days of that. I mean, they could come back theoretically, not necessarily from him, but
Yeah, they should
maybe
bring it back.
somewhere in the future down the line, like another filmmaker has an idea for, a more contained style of DC storytelling. But I don't know. The future is always as unknown as it ever was. What about you, Rhea? Do you have a favorite piece of DC media?
Dang, I'm conflicted. Y'all
Yeah,
pulled out
we
all the
went on a
stops
big
on
tangent.
y'all's. Okay, so I think it's going to be, I don't know if it's a tie, but like my top two anyway would probably be Batman 89 and the Joker. What was it for, like 2017 or 19? Yeah.
2019.
Yeah, so Batman 89, yeah, big nostalgia feels for me. Like it's just a time capsule, like it's literally 1989 in film form, and yeah, I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else but me, but yeah, like the soundtrack, the score, just like the hammy acting, just like the talent, Nicholson, Keaton, they just show up, show out. Love it. Let me see, what was the name of the actress?
Kim Basinger.
Yes, yeah. It was just
Kim
everyone
Basinger as
was in
Vicky Vale. Yeah.
top form, just like top form. Everyone was
Billy
on
D.
there.
Williams as Harvey Dent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the Two-Face that we never got. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a whole mood. Like I know I keep using these weird internet phrases to describe it, but yes, it was just a vibe. It was a mood, a moment.
Pat Hingle, like Pat Hingle as Jim Gordon is kind of like a little time capsule of himself, because him and Alfred are like one of the only two throughputs between the Burton and Schumacher films. But like if you look at Pat Hingle's Gordon, he's like a very, he's the commissioner in that. He does a pretty solid job. He's got a smaller role, but he plays the role like how Jim Gordon would if he's coming across Batman for the first time. I quite enjoy Pat Hingle as Jim Gordon in that.
And I
So,
like
yeah,
that.
definitely.
I forgot the actor's name for Alfred, but I think
Michael
I
Goff.
really like that. Yes, I really like that Alfred, and yeah.
It was kind of like the multiverse before the multiverse was a thing, because like he was the only reoccurring like Alfred throughout the whole thing. So you could like argue like, hey, we were already acclimated to this being a thing back in the 90s. So
it's funny too, because even in like Batman Forever, there's a nod to Superman, because like as after Dick Grayson's parents died, Bruce mentions to the circus is probably halfway to Metropolis by now, and from what I understand, nerds back then went Superman and Batman. So
that was a nice little like Easter egg.
And you had that, and you had a more indirect reference, like you had a name drop to Superman in the next one.
True.
This is why Superman works so well.
Very, very Batman 66 in that way.
I shall cancel the pizza.
And yeah, like for Joker, like totally different, side of the spectrum as far as like why it aligned to me. So basically, like I think I was even chatting with someone like in the chat when this film came up again recently. It was the fact, like, outside of it being inspired by existing comic book lore, just like Arthur as a character, how his existence, and I'm sure like amongst a lot of us having to just the daily grind of like work and just feeling like just sort of like existing and not really living, also just being sort of like just like being cast aside by by like the grander society around you. It's hard for me to describe it like off the top of my head, but basically I just sort of saw a lot of relatability in his character and his in his story, outside of it just seeing him ultimately become the Joker. So I guess like for that, like outside of like how this character is connected to like the DCU, that just was like a really interesting like character study piece where like it was really challenging to be like so like connected to this this character that we see go on to commit really horrible acts against other people, and not feel like in some way or another you can kind of understand how he came to that, conclusion, or why he chose to act on it that way. And it sucks them just like, oh, I don't want to rationalize their behavior, but yeah, like, the movie kind of like
I think you
confronts you with that.
I think you put it as best as anyone could. I don't think we're trying to necessarily sympathize with the actions of Arthur Fleck, but you understand the perspective in which he makes the choices that he does because he's been so, I don't want to say backstab, but just so just let down by the collective society around him. Because as the movie progresses, he loses his ability to speak to a counselor. He has to live with his mother. He goes, like, he has a literal fictional relationship with another person in the building that he lives in.
Yeah, that
And
blew my mind.
that was arguably one of the best twists I've seen in a film like that in a long time. Did not
Since
see that coming at
I
all.
Am Your Father. Yes.
Almost kind of, yeah. But I also think that the performance there from Joaquin was just really endearing in certain respects, because while I don't necessarily justify his actions, you just find that performance very captivating in certain respects. Like after he kills those three Wayne Enterprises interns, like he calms himself down by dancing in a restroom that's just out there in the middle of Gotham City. And it's just like, wow, he really just killed three individuals, and this is exactly how he's coping with it. He's calming himself down because he feels better about it. That is twisted, but in a weird cinematic way, almost beautiful, because of the way that Gundauer's score is playing to the backdrop of that scene is just interesting. So I've got a soft spot for that film, but at first I was really conflicted about it, but over time I've really softened my opinion on it, and I'm curious to see how that second film plays out. Definitely. Well, I think that is actually a really good spot to put a pin in it for this first episode of DC United. I'd like to thank both you guys and, of course, Chainsaw Reacts for coming on. If you guys would like to plug anything you guys are working on, your channels, your Twitter handles, your other social medias, by all means, take the stage. And again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Phil. Always a pleasure to be chatting with you.
This was really fun and just good to talk.
Yeah, and congrats on your channel launch. I'll be sure to catch all the new content that you put out. Y'all be sure to subscribe to the channel as well, and like the stream if you haven't yet. And yeah, you can catch me at Glimmering Harpy on Twitter. Sometimes I join panels and stuff to just chat it up with y'all. Otherwise, you'll see me in the live chat hanging out with y'all as well.
Perfect. Axel?
You can find me at Droga52 on YouTube. I'm starting a new series soon, called Across the Stars, and just where we just talk about my new story called Infinitude Warfare, where it's just DC characters in a Star Wars situation. You can find me on Twitter arguing with people via Axel R. Droga, and catch me on DeviantArt by Axel Droga, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. What else? Yeah, go ahead.
What was I going to say? Yeah, but yeah, thank you, Phil, for inviting me on. And yeah, good talking to you again, Rhea. And yeah, this was a good stream.
I mean, that's kind of the point of DC United. The idea of it was just to have DC fans come and express, the positives, what they love, what they're looking forward to, etc., about, just the entirety of the DC multiverse as it stands, be it, comics, animation, live action, podcast, whatever. That is truly the idea behind this channel and this stream, is to just, kind of collectively unite together in a way that, years ago when fans rallied behind, social media and demanded that Warner Brothers release the Snyder Cut. So that's kind of the idea I had for this channel and this stream, and that's kind of the mantra I kind of want to keep going forward. And thank you to everyone in the chat who hopped in, 3W Edits, Chris, Nerd Cosa Nostra, RJ, everyone. Just really thank you again for coming in and hanging out with us and tuning in. And if anyone again, please also, as Ray mentioned, give us a like, share it, stream it, subscribe it. It'd be really appreciated. That's how the stuff gets noticed. If anyone wants to follow me along on any socials, it's just at Unfiltered. Twitter, or rather X, the platform X, and then you've got, I know, right? No, we're not calling it that here. But X, Vero, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I'm on all of it, just at Unfiltered.
What is Blue Sky?
Blue Sky is basically Twitter.
Is that because when I
Basically,
hear Blue
Twitter's
Sky,
what
I think of that animated studio that died.
Oh yeah, wow, you're right. That's funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right,
it's basically Twitter, but it's invite only. So that's kind of how they weed out bots and stuff like that.
Oh.
I don't check it that much. Honestly, I check Threads and Instagram and X more than anything, even though I'm trying to like migrate away from X because it's not a fun place to be most days. Honestly, like the only reason I have it is for connection purposes and, you know, just keeping in touch with other people that I enjoy talking to, like you guys. And just that's really the only reason I have it. And honestly, again, I'm trying to move away from it because I'm just sick to death of, like, you know, all the discourse and all the people hiding behind avatars who just want to come in and troll and, like, you know, kind of rain on people's parades when you're just trying to like express stuff you might like. But yeah, much thanks to anyone who stopped in. Really appreciate it. As always on this show, we like to just wish everyone a good evening. Obviously, next week is Thanksgiving. Not sure if I'll have a stream then, but maybe the week after that. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, and stay safe and have a good rest of your night. Take care.